right, we are back live for another episode of the Dr. Cliff Show. I'm Dr. Cliff Olson, audiologist and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rachael Cook. I am also an audiologist at Applied Hearing Solutions. Thanks for joining us today. We will be doing a deep dive on all things Signia hearing aids today. So we'll be starting off with a little bit of history about Signia as a company and where they came from. We'll also be talking about their entire portfolio of products today from top to bottom. We'll be reviewing some of the features that are specific to Signia, features and offerings that are specific to them, as well as the accessory devices that are compatible with Signia products. So if you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. That definitely helps us get in front of a wider audience and makes it so that you don't miss any of our new stuff that comes out. And we do a lot of stuff, honestly.
We do a ton of stuff.
We do.
I'm starting to think we do too much stuff.
Nah.
Maybe we should cut back a little bit, have a little work-life balance. How does that sound?
Nah.
Sounds horrible. Yeah, sounds horrible. All right.
And make sure that you're asking questions early and often. At the end, we'll be doing a Q&A session, and so just let them rip.
Awesome. All right, so before we jump into it, I do want to talk about the Hearing Up Network. Now, you've seen us do a variety of these episodes where we bring on a Hearing Up Network member. The whole purpose of Hearing Up is to make sure that you have access to a high-quality hearing healthcare professional, someone who actually follows best practices when fitting you with hearing aids. As much as we love the Signia hearing aids that we're going to be talking about in this particular episode, the hearing aid is only as good as the provider who fits and programs those devices. So if you are going to be getting hearing aids and you want to make sure that you maximize your performance with your devices, go to hearingup.com and find a hearing care professional near you.
Okay. So we'll be jumping straight into the history of Signia, and actually Signia did not start out as Signia. Signia was actually previously the brand Siemens Technology, and a lot of people are familiar with that brand because they have a lot of different medical devices, but Siemens was actually founded in Berlin in 1847, and I'm sure there's some individuals that go, wait, hold up, there were hearing aids in 1847? Not like the hearing aids that we had today. They actually started out with telephone-based products. And that is what they offered. And then in 1877, they started producing telephone amplifier products. So they found that there was definitely a need of individuals who needed that telephone signal to be boosted up a little bit. And in 1910 is really when they made the shift over to the Siemens Hearing Instruments division. They get all the time this amazing German hearing aid technology. Anytime that you see that quoted, chances are they're probably using Siemens technology.
Siemens Signia technology for sure.
Yeah.
Make sure you go check out. I actually did a funny video. I don't know if it's funny. Like, it's a realistic video. I was wearing lederhosen though in the thumbnail of that video, so make sure you go check that out. Sometimes you got to spice things up when you're making videos every single weekend, but that's hilarious. And I had a Stein mug in it too. Go check that out after this episode. I think you'll love it. So when I was going through graduate school, we were familiar with Siemens products. And then when I got to my fourth year externship, that is where we ended up having the transition because Siemens sold their hearing aid division to a company named Sivantos. Yep. And Sivantos ended up renaming their products Signia. And for a while they were co-branded, but it is not uncommon for patients to still come into the clinic today and say, hey, I want Siemens hearing aids.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, that 8 years ago, this whole transition happened. We need to move past the whole Siemens brand, which is very widely recognized. I mean, you see Siemens everywhere.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, we are talking about Signia, which has replaced the Siemens brand. Now, on top of that, to add a little layer of complexity into all of this as well, WS Audiology was formed, and that was a merger between Sivantos and Widex. Widex is another hearing aid manufacturer that we will be talking about in the coming weeks on this particular show if you want to learn more about their product line. But they merged Sivantos and Widex into kind of like a joint company called WS Audiology. So now you kind of have both of these brands living under the same umbrella. And we'll talk a little bit more about all the other brands that are involved with these two later in the show, so make sure that you stick around. But this is why some individuals get a little confused when they start talking about the Signia brand that's owned by Sivantos.
Right. Now, they were previously based in Piscataway, New Jersey, and they actually just made a recent a recent shift of their manufacturing and distribution to Mexico. So as far as I know, they're keeping their headquarters, so to speak, in New Jersey, but a lot of the manufacturing and distribution is being moved out of the country, and that's not uncommon in the hearing aid industry either. But when it comes to market share, when we take a look at where it still shows as Siemens on this graph, where Siemens would fall.
They're perpetuating the issue. And this is from 2023.
I know. And when I saw that on there, I was just like, that's not even close to their name anymore. We've gone through a couple of rebrandings since then. But you can see that on this graph, they have about 12% of the market share. If you look right below them, Widex is at 3%. And actually, those two companies are now together in a merger under WS Audiology.
Yeah, so you can kind of figure it as the entire company has a 15% market share, but really when we're talking about the Signia hearing aids that you're getting, approximately what was that 12% of the market is going to be Signia hearing aids that you see out there.
Now let's talk about where kind of their technology all started, because I think that this is really interesting, and their technology easily goes back the farthest when it comes to hearing aid technology. So in 1910, they came out with their first hearing instruments, and they had their amplified phones. In fact, the original amplified phone can still be viewed in, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Erlangen, Germany, and it still works, and it was a huge device, and after inflation it actually would have cost around 14,000 US dollars today. So it was not something that you were just buying to put in your home, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, just think of if you don't like spending what $4,700 is the average cost of a pair of hearing aids in today's money, and that can go upwards of maybe even $8,000 or $9,000 depending on tech level, depending on level of care that you get from your provider. But imagine if you were being asked nowadays for $14,000 for a pair of hearing aids. That is the equivalent. I mean, I don't know back then who could have afforded these devices.
Well, and that was just a phone.
And that was just a phone. That's true.
Phone,
that's just
so
a
you
phone.
weren't even using it full time.
Hopefully
it was just
you
for
lived
phone
with your
calls.
family members
and
you had to
really
have to call
like
them ever.
the people you were calling and talking to, because that is one expensive phone call. But after that, in 1948, they actually put out their first pocket-sized hearing aid, which was a body aid, which meant that the bulk of the hearing aid actually had to be held elsewhere. It could not be held behind your ear. There was just far too many parts for that. And
so
that
what type of a contraption do you think they'd have to put this hearing aid in to make it wearable?
Well, I already know the answer. But this one was a purse-worn one, which I thought was pretty cool. So the Phonophore, that one you kind of hung a strap over your shoulder. I think there was a belt option for it as well, so you could kind of seat it on your pants there, and then you could see that there's a little ear-worn headphone type of headband situation that went over
And it's interesting because that is a single ear headphone, and when you really start thinking about it, I can't remember the dates of this. I want to say that like back in the 1960s, 1970s, it was very commonplace for individuals to only treat one ear if they had hearing loss in both of their ears. We now know based on research that it is a much better idea to treat both ears if you have hearing loss in both ears. But back then in 1948, they probably were unaware of this research at that time. Plus there was also obviously costs associated with making a double earphone rather than a single earphone.
I think of the what were they called? Like the monocle, like the single eyeglass.
The spectacle.
Lens.
Well, I guess it would be a
like
monocle. I think it technically would be.
I think of that too. They were kind of into just treating one side and not the other side. But yeah, like you said, cost plays into that as well.
So about 11 years later, they ended up upgrading their technology, just like you see in today's hearing aids. So what did they upgrade to? And I know you want to say this name really bad.
The auriculette. I think it's just such a fancy name. But this was their first behind-the-ear hearing aid. And you can see it's looks pretty close to a standard behind-the-ear hearing aid today, probably a little bit bulkier. And as you can see on the end or the tip of that hearing aid, that does not look like a custom option going into the ear. That looks like either a foam tip or some sort of one-size-fits-all type thing.
Yeah, and that's definitely a tube coming down from a 90-degree angle ear hook, which I don't know if I've ever seen any patient's ears have a 90-degree angle coming down from the top of their ear, but hey, it was probably much easier to manufacture a right angle ear hook than it was the nice curved ear hooks that we have nowadays that would be much more comfortable.
Right.
And, you know, how often do we roughly upgrade hearing aid technology nowadays?
Generally around every 5 to 7 years or so.
Yeah, so that's how long you would see like having a massive upgrade. But they literally went, 7 years before they came out with their next in-the-ear hearing aid. So
Yeah.
coming out with a new style here.
Yeah.
And this one here, I don't know how to say this. Do you know how to say this one?
The Soretta.
The Soretta, there we
Yeah.
go. So we have the Soretta up there. Now the interesting thing about the Soretta, that is an in-the-ear hearing aid. So an ITE hearing aid, that to me does not appear to be a custom product. They do
No.
love their right angles for sure. Back in
do.
the 40s, 50s, and 60s. That is probably the least comfortable in-the-ear device in human history because there was no custom ear impression done to obtain that monstrosity right there. And now I don't want to come across as being critical here. I do appreciate the advance in technology. We do need to start somewhere,
Yep.
right? But it just makes you appreciate today's modern hearing aids a heck of a lot more.
It certainly does. And we'll take a look at our next graphic here, which is the full lineup of Signia products at the moment. And as you can see, we have come a far, far, far way. So when it comes to the modern look and design of hearing aids and even their custom products, you can see we have much fewer 90-degree angles up there.
Yeah. I mean, if you start off on the left-hand side, let me see if I can kind of run through all these.
Yeah.
On the far left-hand side, you have the Signia Silk devices. Now, these come in different, tech levels. They come in different models from different years, depending on what platforms that they were on. Then we start working our way towards the right, and you're running through all the NCO devices.
Yep.
You have a couple of disposable battery options there. You start getting to like the half-shell option, and then you start getting into the rechargeable option that uses inductive charging. That's that black in-the-ear device. Then you have an instant fit device, not unlike the Signia Silk from the far left-hand side, but the Signia Active or Active Pro, it really just depends on, from a tech perspective, what's inside of it that would differentiate those two. And then you have my personal favorite, and maybe even my mother's personal favorite from a styling perspective. Heck, who knows, maybe even my dad's personal favorite, since he wants me to name drop him in here a little bit more. That one right there is this Stiletto hearing aid. It was literally designed because it's a more stylish option, trying to overcome any kind of stigma associated with the look of a hearing aid. And then we start working our way into the pure options, which are the receiver and canal devices. And then I think we have like the motion BTEs off to the right-hand side that use one of those rounded ear hooks now with a size 13 tube and custom ear mold.
Right.
Okay, I can take a breath now.
Yeah. So let's start talking with the probably most common hearing aid on the market today, which would be that receiver and canal style hearing aid. And how we actually have this episode broken up, we were going to go by style, but because Signia has different style options depending on if you're using battery or rechargeable, and that changes the platform or the technology level that the hearing aids are on. So we decided to go break it down by platform, starting with the most recent, most current platform, which is their AX platform. And so starting with the receiver and canal style hearing aids, we have the Pure 312 AX, which uses a battery. But then we also have the Pure Charge and Go AX, and we have a picture of this as well. So you can see really nice, sleek design, and that is actually their travel charging case. So definitely looks like they were going after kind of an AirPod type of a thing with that.
Yeah, and I think these are great because there are some of the smaller rechargeable hearing aids that you can get. So if you don't have a whole lot of space behind your ear, but you still want a rechargeable unit, these are a great option. I think we're going to talk about the different types of charging later on in this episode, so I won't necessarily bring it up now, but they do use a different form of rechargeable technology in the AX line of devices versus their previous versions. That's an important differentiator that might steer you towards getting, of course, the newer platform rather than the older platform. But then we also have the Cross AX. So we did a fantastic episode with Dr. Scott Frank. It was a couple months ago where we're talking about different cross technology options. So if you have single-sided deafness, which is where you don't hear anything in one of your ears, but you either have normal hearing or some hearing loss, but they can still be aidable in your better hearing ear, they do have a cross option that will cross sound from your bad side over to your good side, and then your hearing care professional can amplify it appropriately in your better hearing ear. So it's nice that they do have that as an option on the AX platform.
Right. And then we also have the option in the AX platform for those stylish stilettos that we were talking about earlier. So we got a graphic of those as well. Again, with that really interesting case that they charge in too. they just look really nice. And these come in a couple of different color and style options. I know that they have a solid white format, a white with the rose gold on there, which I think looks great. And then they also have a black with silver on it as well.
And they're really starting to expand that lineup as well here recently. I mean, when you have a stylish device, I mean, different people, I actually have a patient who's a realtor out here in the Scottsdale area, and he has multiple different pairs of these devices because he likes to mix and match based on the outfit that he's wearing. Now, you have to be able to afford multiple pairs of these devices, but sometimes your hearing care professional will give you a price break if you buy multiple pairs of devices, which is what we do with this gentleman. Now, you do have the custom option as well, and the thing that I like about custom hearing aids just in general is that you can get a 3D digital scan of your ear done, or a custom physical impression of your ear. That's sent off to the manufacturer. They will create a hearing aid that literally can only be worn by you, and it fits your ear perfectly. So if you're having issues with retention or anything like that, you can also get a custom earpiece added to the end of any one of these other hearing aids that we just got done mentioning, to make sure that you're retaining the proper amount of amplification inside of your ears so you can hit your hearing loss prescription more effectively, and so of course, you have better retention. But the Signia Charge and Go AX is essentially, we have a graphic of this one too. This one right here, you can see uses inductive charging. It goes into its case. It doesn't have any battery contacts on it, but it will actually charge those units up overnight. And then of course you take them out, you pop them in your ears in the morning. And I do got to say that the black color is something that's becoming more and more common for people to want to wear, because they look a lot more like earbuds rather than hearing aids themselves.
Right. Definitely. So definitely a large lineup on their newest platform. And here shortly after the sponsor break, we're going to get into some of the other offerings that they have just 1 and 2 generations back in technology.
Absolutely. So now Signia is a great brand if you need a prescription hearing aid, but if you have a mild to moderate hearing loss, you may be able to use an over-the-counter hearing aid. Over-the-counter hearing aids are a completely new category of devices for adults with a perceived mild to moderate hearing loss as of October 17th, 2022. This means that you can go online, you can go into a pharmacy, you can even go into a hearing care professional's office and purchase these over-the-counter devices that are now regulated without having a hearing test or having a prescription for hearing aids. However, you do still have to be careful with these over-the-counter hearing aids, because not all over-the-counter hearing aids are created the same, which is exactly why you should check out the Soundwave Sontro over-the-counter hearing aid. Soundwave Hearing is headquartered in Oak Brook, Illinois, in my home state of Illinois. They are a receiver and canal design, and the Auto-Tune app that you use to program these particular over-the-counter hearing aids makes it possible to customize your own audio settings, and you can even take this into your hearing care professional to have them dial it in more for you if you have reader measurements and a variety of other different tests done on you while you're there. Now, you can learn more about these Sontro devices at hearsoundwave.com, or you can check them out on my website, hearingup.com, where I also have a full video review of this particular product.
Great. Well, jumping into just 1 generation back, this would be the X platform. So the most recent platform would be the AX platform. Going just 1 back, it is the X platform. And shortly here in a moment, we'll be talking about the NX platform. But for the X platform, the first one that I wanted to talk about here was their instant fit devices, because these are really cool. And this is something that we'll speak about later, but this is, you know, kind of proprietary to Signia as a brand, of having this device that's an in-the-ear device, but it's not custom molded to your ear.
So what would some of the potential benefits of having an instant fit versus a custom fit when you go into a clinic? I mean, I can think of the idea that if you're in a hurry, and you don't have time to actually go through a physical ear mold impression, or you live in a different state and you need something quick when you're in traveling or something like that. But what are some of the other benefits that you could get from this?
You know, I have a patient who I saw recently who was in need of a cross system that was in a custom device, and those are actually pretty hard to come by in the hearing aid market, but the Silk is able to come in a cross setup, so that was pretty cool. I also think that having the ability with the Silk devices, which I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but with the Silk devices as well, having the ability to get someone fit much faster as well. So if they're in need of something that's doesn't take the time to have a custom device done and made on it. It's just ready to go. You order it from the manufacturer and it's there pretty quickly. Having the ability to switch out their different click sleeves and click domes and things like that, just from a fit perspective, if there's someone who's a little bit more a better candidate for an open fit hearing aid rather than the kind of occlusion that we see sometimes with more of the custom fit devices. I have seen these devices do a really, really good job with individuals that have normal or maybe some mild hearing loss in the low frequencies and then some more considerable hearing loss in the higher
They
frequencies.
actually do a better job than what some people would suspect that they do from an amplification perspective, which is nice. And you know, the Silk devices that you were talking about, the Silk X, so they are on the X platform, not on the AX platform that we were talking about previously. But these are really small devices.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's look
they
at
don't
them.
call them IICs or invisible in the canals. Let's take a look at them. We've got a graphic for them here.
They're tiny.
But they're pretty small, and when they go into an ear, and you notice that if you look into someone's bare ear canal, it just looks like a black hole. So they make the face plates of these typically black. Now you can get them in like a tan color, but they just look much more natural when you have the black face plate on there. And I have certain patients that they prefer the feel and sound of this particular type of device versus the feel and sound of a custom-made product. So it really just depends on the person, as long as you can hit your prescriptive targets. Another unique thing about these that you wouldn't think that you'd be able to do is you can actually have them to some degree remotely programmed. And so you can actually have them paired to your phone, not really paired to your phone, but you can have the Signia app on your phone and it will emit high frequency chirps to communicate with the actual hearing aid. So you can be on a virtual call with your audiologist. They can send through some adjustments to you. Those get uploaded into your hearing aids through those chirps, so you can actually have a remote session with an invisible, or relatively invisible, in the canal hearing aid.
Which is definitely rare.
Totally rare. It's totally unique to them, right?
Yeah.
Not totally unique. You can technically do it with X as well, but you have to have a neck loop with X. It won't do it wirelessly through your phone. So I think they call that with X the remote link. I'm not afraid to talk about them because they're basically the same company nowadays.
Yeah, pretty much.
But then we also have the Active and Active Pro, and you're much more experienced with these products than I am.
I love these. I think that these did a really, really good job at also trying to get more individuals in the hearing aid market with this earbud type of style and look to them. So they're also instant fit in the ear devices. As you can see, their charger, it looks kind of like a lot of those kind of inductive charger earbud models that you see across the market today, where you just kind of set them in there and they just start charging. And they are great. Again, they use those click domes or click sleeves that you see on the bottom on each of those devices. And so that way you can fit a wide range of hearing losses and configurations with those sleeves. And those are the color options that they have for them right now at the moment as well. So that white and rose gold, the black and silver, kind of going more for those stylish features again.
And you can technically use the domes with those too. You don't have to use the sleeves. I actually have a patient who prefers the domes with those rather than using the sleeves on there. So if you just look up the Signia domes, you can see what different configurations they have. And it really is the responsibility of your hearing care professional to identify which one best fits your ear physically, which aids in retention, as well as acoustically makes the most sense with that. Now, with the Active and Active Pros, you also get the ability to do Bluetooth audio, so that you can stream audio directly into your ears that you cannot do with the instant fit Silk devices.
Correct, exactly. Now on the X platform as well, we also have the Motion Charge and Go lineup, and they actually have 3 separate powers for these behind the ear instruments. And so let's take a look at those there. From on the left hand side, we have the Motion Charge and Go X, and this would technically be their lowest powered BTE device, and it's actually pretty similarly sized to like a receiver and canal style device. Then in the middle there, we have our Motion Charge and Go PX, P standing for power. That one kind of bumps up the power output there for more, moderate to profound hearing losses. And on the far right-hand side, we definitely have our Superpower BTE, as evidenced by the name Motion Charge and Go Superpower X. And that is going to be your Superpower BTE that is really for individuals that have that more moderately to severe or severe to profound hearing losses.
And anytime you see the C and G, that means charge and go, which means, of course, they are rechargeable. They're not disposable battery models for those. But so that's it for the X lineup. Now, boy, this gets confusing, right? Like I can only imagine, because it's confusing sometimes for us to be like, wait, which model are they on now? But it's really confusing potentially for someone who's looking at getting these, and you're not living in this world that we live in of hearing aids all day, every day. But we do have the NX platform, which is 2 generations back. And inside of that, we have some custom IICs, so some full shell devices on the NX platform. We have a graphic for this as well for you to take a look at what these look like. These are much more of their traditional look of an in-the-ear hearing aid. That you can tell that they're definitely transitioning into more of like a stylish approach with the newer technologies. But you really need to have a discussion with your hearing care professional to determine what makes sense for you. And we've done episodes talking about the benefits, or the pros and cons rather, of rechargeable technology versus disposable battery technology. You have to make sure that you're getting the right devices. You can have a fantastic hearing aid, but if it's not the right hearing aid for you, it's a bad option of a hearing aid.
Now, on that same line, in the NX platform, we were just talking about the Motion Charge and Go devices that are in the X line. Those are the rechargeable devices. If you wanted a battery version of a behind-the-ear hearing aid from Signia, you are going to have to go back to the NX platform to get them. And they come in the same X, PX, well, I guess technically it would be X on the end, but they come in the same 3 sizes. It's just using a battery with them other than being rechargeable.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You're going to give up some to go back in a platform, as we talk about, every 2 years or so, they upgrade the technology level till you get to the point where you're 5 to 7 years out, and it's a pretty big jump. We're still living in this 5 to 7 year window with a lot of these older platforms that they have. So you're not giving up a ton. If you really had a certain feature that you needed to get to benefit you substantially, you shouldn't feel worried about jumping back a generation or two to get that product that is going to solve the problem that you're having with your hearing.
Definitely.
All right, so that is it for the AX devices, that is it for the X devices, and that is it for the NX devices. We're going to continue on with our discussion of the different products and features and things like that from Signia, but before we do, let me get into my next sponsor here. Now, if you missed last week's episode, we talked about ReSound's product lineup, and they have a new platform called Omnia. This new platform by ReSound is specifically designed to help you understand speech better in a background noise situation. Their new front focus program provides up to a 4.5 decibel signal-to-noise ratio improvement, which is massive. And this is compared to just 1 generation prior to them. Now, if you're unfamiliar with signal-to-noise ratios, which I wouldn't blame you if you're unfamiliar with them, about every 1 decibel of signal-to-noise ratio improvement that you get from a hearing aid is approximately equivalent to from 5% to 10% improvement in speech understanding in a background noise scenario. Now, ReSound has expanded their Omnia platform, so all of these benefits from a speech and noise perspective to include their Customs by ReSound and their new mini receiver in the ear device, as well as their behind the ear styles if you want to use a device that uses a size 13 tube on it. You do get to experience this groundbreaking technology from ReSound in whatever style of hearing aid you prefer at this point. If you want more information, go to resound.com or check out my ReSound Omnia review on YouTube.
Great. So last week we were talking about how ReSound has a couple of companies underneath it, or owns them rather. And some of these are in the form of private labeled hearing aids. Some of these are in the form of retail locations. And this is true for all hearing aid brands. And so you actually might be familiar with Signia technology, but just in a different type of a package. For example, in Costco, they do sell Rexton devices. Those are actually Signia devices. Here.com uses Signia devices, and Here USA uses Signia devices as well. They also have some private label hearing aids that they distribute through the very popular and well-known True Hearing and Miracle Ear locations as well.
Yep, I wouldn't say popular, but I would say They're familiar.
Familiar,
Yeah,
familiar,
there we
better
go.
word.
Yeah. And you might also be familiar with the Kirkland Signature 7.0 hearing aids. Those were actually made by Savantos, who is the owner of both Signia and Rexton. So they technically keep their own brand names, but generally speaking, they use very similar technology.
Yeah.
Not unlike what you found when Sonova, that owns Phonak and Unitron, was making the Kirkland Signature 9.0 and 10.0, right?
Exactly. Now, they also partnered with Sony recently, and you know a lot about that.
Yeah, so I actually, when you look at the Signia Silks and you look at the Signia Actives, the over-the-counter hearing aid options, which would be the Sony CRE C10, which would be the over-the-counter equivalent to the Silk devices, and the Sony CRE E10s. I apologize, they do this with their hearing aids as well as all their other products. The Sony CRE E10s are equivalent to the Actives. So. But keep in mind, these are their over-the-counter hearing aid options. They are not their fully featured hearing aids. So it's not like you're getting a Silk as an OTC. That's not how it works, right? There's virtually a very limited customization. Now, I think that they're worth checking out, and you can check those out on hearingup.com. I do have video reviews of these products, as well as you can purchase them on hearingup.com as well. But basically, they partnered with Sony to do this, to actually make these products. So you know that you're getting an actual quality device because it's coming from a reputable hearing aid manufacturer. If it was just Sony coming out of the woodwork with some product that they had, I would be like, well, they don't really have experience with hearing aids. They have experience in great technology for other things, but you really do want to make sure that if you're going to be getting an over-the-counter hearing aid, that you're purchasing it from a company that really knows what they're doing from a hearing aid perspective.
Yeah. All the way back to the early 1900s even. So
yeah, there you go, with telephones
Right,
and all that
exactly.
good stuff, and purse hearing aids, right?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even stop at over-the-counter hearing aids. They also have quite a few accessory devices to go with their hearing aids. We got a picture of all of the accessory devices right here, and we start out over on the far left-hand side. That's going to be their mini pocket remote control. This one's nice. It actually has a little keychain loop on it, and you can just keep it on your keys. It has a little lock on it, too, so that you don't sit on it and accidentally change your hearing aid volume or anything like that. In the middle there, we actually have our Easy Tech, and that is for use with a couple of generations back technology that did require the use of a streamer device. So if you wanted to connect to your phone or your tablet or anything like that, you would have to use some sort of a neck loop device to make that happen. Over to the right-hand side from there, that tiny little square is going to be your Streamline mic. That is their remote microphone system. So that is something that's worn by your conversational partner to try to pick up their voice much closer to the source, much closer to their mouth, and then wirelessly transmit that signal to one or both of your hearing aids. And on that far right-hand side, the well-loved TV streamer in the form of their Streamline TV device. And that is going to take the signal from your television and wirelessly transmit it into your hearing aids as well.
And if you have direct Bluetooth compatible hearing aids, you do have an app control that can be on your phone, so it can replace the neck loop that you saw on there. The Easy Tech replaces that, and it can replace a remote control because you can just go into the app and adjust your hearing aids however you want to. But some people do like to have that more tactile, where you're not on it, and you may not even own a smartphone and want to use these hearing aids. That's realistic, but just getting a remote control for that as well.
I think we both have patients that are like, I don't want a smartphone. And then we're like, do I have a device for you?
That's
Look at
right.
this little remote control for
like,
you
"That's
and
great."
your hearing aids, and they are so happy
You just,
every
but you
time.
might, and so you don't have to worry about butt dialing your hearing aids when you sit down on it, like you said,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is great. Now we do want to get into some of the other specifics here from a tech level perspective.
Yes.
With Signia. Now, they have, everybody has their own nomenclatures with how they do this. We were talking last week about a different company and how they number their hearing aids. So for Signia specifically, the top tier is a level 7, second tier is a level 5, Third tier is a level 3, second tier is 2, first tier is 1. Each time you go down in technology level, it takes features and customizations away from your hearing care professional when they're trying to optimize your devices. Now, it will typically lower down the cost of those hearing aids each tech level that you go. So the recommendation that I typically give people is go with the highest level you can reasonably afford. If you cannot afford it, that is the only reason you should be dropping down in tech level, and then it's the responsibility of your hearing care professional to optimize the performance of those devices within whatever the budget is that you have. Okay.
Right.
Now, they only had the 5, 7, and 3 for quite some time on the AX platform, but literally within the past couple of weeks, they finally came out with level 2 and level 1, and this is in the United States because they've had lower tier levels available in other countries. It just finally worked its way to the United States. We always get everything last.
Yeah, we kind of do. We kind of do with hearing aid technology, but that's okay. I feel like we're probably a pretty big market for them, so they got to really go out and field test that stuff before they bring it to that large of a market. But
that is actually a very good point.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
I think
like test all it out, get the kinks out before
Yeah.
you bring it to me, and
No,
I'm
seriously.
talking about it online like
Exactly.
it's the greatest thing ever.
Exactly. Now, you just have to keep this in mind when we're talking about this technology level, that not every single device that you want or are looking for is going to have this wide variety of technology levels in it. So for example, we kept saying the actives and the active pros, the active and the active pros. Well, the difference between those two is just that the active device is their level 1 product and the active pros is their level 7 product. There is no 5, there is no 3, there is no 2. You get the either, lower tier technology product or the higher tier technology product with nothing in between. So just make sure that you discuss this with your provider if you're asking them about Signia products and really knowing what technology levels are available with the devices that you're trying to get.
So it's like you're driving a Ferrari versus riding in a go-kart kind of thing.
There's
no in between.
There's no in between. Yeah,
Okay.
it's two very distinct experiences.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So one of the big features of the AX lineup, which is the most recent platform that they have, is this idea of dual processors. So having a chip that's dedicated for speech processing, another chip that's dedicated for noise processing, and specifically to filter out as much noise as humanly possible. It's kind of interesting. I did a review on the AX line of devices. I would recommend that you go check that out because there's a very interesting way of explaining this using photography that is a little bit more easy to understand with different exposures. So I'd recommend that you actually go watch that video. I think I published that maybe 8 to 12 months ago. That platform has been out for a little bit now, but go check that out. Do yourself a favor. You'll enjoy that.
Definitely. Now, another thing that we were speaking about that is technically more proprietary to Signia as a brand would be these instant fit in the ear aids in the form of the Silks, the Actives, and the Active Pros, and also the fact that at the moment, at least in the United States, they are the only ones with the slim receiver and canal style hearing aids, which are going to be those stilettos, the fashionable slim ricks, if you will.
Yeah. And so other companies have teased at the idea of coming out with something that's more of a stylish device, but we have not seen anything about that in quite some time.
Yeah,
so
we're waiting on it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Let's talk about click domes. So click domes, they're basically, these are the rubber domes that they snap on the tips of the hearing aids. When you usually talk to different hearing care professionals, they either love them or they absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
Me personally, I hated them. I'm glad that they've gotten away from them on their AX line of devices because they were very difficult for patients to change.
Yeah.
And they were actually difficult for me to change. And I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm getting delicate fingers or whatnot.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I have fingernails, and so for me, it was really easy to just pop them off. I did appreciate the fact that they did not go on and off easily for my patients that I had concerns about that with. However, like you said, there's a caveat that if you need to change the wax guard and you can't get that dome off, you're stuck until you can come all the way back into the office to see me, and that's a huge bummer.
Yeah, and if you think that you snap it on, but you didn't actually snap it on, the next time you pull it out of your ear, the dome's going to be in your ear, and the hearing aid's going to be in your hand. I do like the sleeves, though.
I do.
The sleeves are interesting. They're really the only one. I mean, I could think of like Oticon with their grip tips, but those never really caught on.
Yeah.
But these are, I think, a really comfortable option for a lot of people. And like you said, you can get the vented or non-vented sleeves that go onto these hearing aids, and they make it a little bit more comfortable for certain individuals.
Yeah, I see with nearly all the hearing aid brands, they always have these very circular domes. But the problem is that we look in ears every single day, and I've never seen a perfect ear canal that's just this great circle. There's always some sort of like oval shape to it or something. So the sleeves were nice. They were, I don't know, what's that word? Like ergonomic. Like they
do kind of have like this curve to them. You want to make sure that you rotate them to where they're going with the curve of the ear canal. So yeah,
I do appreciate that from them. And then you were ready to talk about their chargers.
Yeah, we have a whole charger lineup. Now, the technology has changed with chargers with Signia over the course of the years. They were some of the first ones to be doing the connection charging, like the direct connect charging, where they had their nickel metal hydride batteries, but they were able to get rid of those battery contacts and go to inductive charging. They were some of the first companies, or one of the first companies out there to do inductively charged hearing aids where you didn't need any battery contacts. And now they've actually gone to galvanic charging, which does still use a battery contact, which is unfortunate because it can get grimy and you got to keep it clean, but it actually gives you some of the longest battery life of any rechargeable battery hearing aid on the market. You can probably wear them 2 days in a row without charging them. But that's what you get with this galvanic charging. We do have a charger lineup for you guys, a graphic that we can put up here on the screen. And there's a variety of different styles of these. You can go with the travel one that's on the far right that has a power bank in it, and you can see you gradually get smaller and smaller as you go to the left-hand side there if you want something that's a little bit more compact. But a lot of these right here are the inductively charged options, and then you also have galvanic charge in there as well.
I would say of any hearing aid brand, they have the widest variety of charger options just because they also have the actives, the stilettos. They have their previous platforms of receiver and canal style technology that has like the black boxy chargers that were inductive charging too. So they just have a ton of chargers.
Yeah,
just a ton.
You want to get your money's worth from your hearing care professional. Make sure that they get you the exact right charger that you want and need with these, and it's their responsibility to stay up on all of this technology.
This is true. Now, before we get into connectivity, I think this is the perfect time to let y'all know if you have questions, ask them now, because we are going to be shortly going into our question and answer section here. So if you have any burning questions and you want to get them answered, make sure you start dropping them in the comments so that we can get to them. Anyway, when we talk about connectivity, Signia devices are generally made for iPhone devices, and so they pair up very, very nicely with iPhone products. And then recently, over the last couple of years or so, they added in the phones with the ASHA streaming protocol in them as well. So there are many, many Androids on the market as well that can also direct pair to these devices. They also have their app, which has a very wide variety of controls in it. I feel like it has a fair amount of programming changes and options on it. And like you were talking about earlier, you can even use the app to control the Silk hearing aids, those nearly IIC or invisible in canal type of devices. Even though they don't have Bluetooth streaming, they use those high frequency chirps to communicate programming adjustments.
That's right. And you can actually have remote programming done direct Bluetooth with a lot of the AX products, a lot of the X products, a lot of the NX products, to where you see your hearing care professional, they see you, they're tapped into your programming, they can read all the data out of your hearing aids, they can make any adjustments that they want to with your hearing aids. And so that's a really good option if you're someone who cannot make it in physically to see your hearing care professional. If you live in a different state for part of the year and you still want to keep checking in with your hearing care professional, you can do that remotely through a lot of these devices using that Signia app.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't have this written in here, but they also have the Signia Assistant, and I believe that this is the only app feature that makes actual permanent changes to your hearing aid settings. So it's not like creating a custom program that you would save and have independent of your automatic program in your hearing aids. If you make changes through Signia Assistant, those changes are going to stay there. So just kind of a word of caution, don't get too crazy with Signia Assistant because your hearing care professional will have to put those back.
Done that before.
Yep, definitely.
But, it uses artificial intelligence. You can play with it. I think that everyone should feel relatively comfortable playing with the program settings of their own hearing aids if they want to. And if you mess it up, you can always go back to your hearing care professional and they'll take care of it for you, so you shouldn't panic about that too much, really.
Right, definitely. And as far as tinnitus goes, from a sound generator standpoint, they have quite a few tinnitus sound generator options within their devices. And they also have something that's proprietary to them as well, which would be their notch therapy. So they basically try to find a way to center on that tinnitus that you have. You go through some pitch matching and volume matching of your tinnitus, and then they apply a very narrow band of some kind of white noise, if you will, to try to decrease the perception of that tinnitus.
Yeah, we really want to try to drown out. Once we identify what the center frequency is of your tinnitus, sometimes we can actually stimulate adjacent frequencies and drown out the perception of the tinnitus. But you have to be able to identify with tinnitus pitch matching and intensity matching what that center frequency is. But that's unique to Signia. Like, no one else does that form of tinnitus treatment inside of their actual hearing aids. So kind of neat that they have that for all of you out there who have hearing loss and tinnitus at the same time, which is a lot of individuals with hearing loss have tinnitus too.
Most definitely. Okay. Final call for questions. I'm going to jump into our last sponsor segment here from Eosera. So Eosera is an entire comprehensive lineup of ear care products, but today I definitely wanted to highlight their Ear Itch MD. And in fact, you recently highlighted their Ear Itch MD. So if you haven't seen that review video, make sure you go check that out, because you get very into depth on what this product is. But if you just started wearing hearing aids, or maybe if you have seasonal allergies, you might have some itchy ear canals. We all kind of have that every once in a while. And with Ear Itch MD, it's actually a very convenient application. They have this little spray bottle that you can put a spritz or two in your ears morning or night, just for some relief and some moisturizing of the ear canals there. Now, this has a soothing moisturizing oil blend that includes, everyone fasten your seatbelts, coconut, mineral, jojoba, I hope I'm saying that right, apricot kernel, laurel berry fruit, and tea tree oil, as well as vitamin E and liquid Germol Plus. So basically quite a lineup of different moisturizing, soothing oils in there to really just bring relief to itchy ear canals.
And it actually smells wonderful. Like, that's something you wouldn't think from like an anti-itch ear spray, but it smells wonderful.
I'd have to give it a little
Yeah,
sniff
you can
here.
give it a sniff there. I mean, it is...
I'm not going to spray it.
It is... Yeah, don't spray it in your
Oh,
nostril.
that is nice.
It is very nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, another plus.
There you go.
So thank you, Eosera. Check out all their products, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, most national retailers.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. So we've got Kelsey back on for questions today. I'm thinking at least 50 questions on this one.
Pretty close. So if we don't get to all of them, I apologize. I will do my best to work our way through these. The first question is from Bruce. Is there any new announcements from Signia for this video to be dedicated to them? The reason I ask is because Dr. Cliff seems to recommend other brands a lot more often than Signia.
Yeah, very good question. So I have certain sponsors on my channel, so they end up getting a little bit more airtime than others. If a company is releasing new products, I absolutely, whether they're a sponsor or not, I will highlight their products and say all the good and bad about those particular devices. Signia is, they used to be a sponsor of Dr. Cliff and not the Dr. Cliff show, but my regular channel. But yeah, like when they do come out with a new product, I happily review all these products. I usually get advanced notice of when they're coming out, and they send them to me early so I can get my reviews done. To my knowledge, I do not have any information about them coming out with a new product anytime soon. But the AX product, I would still consider that to be a very good product and very modern in relation to a lot of the other products that are out there.
Yeah, I fit a lot of Signia products, and I've been very happy with them. So,
all right. This next question comes from Vanessa. I'm really interested in information about the Charge and Go TAX rechargeable hearing aid. I'm really curious about the battery life and supporting the streaming from multiple applications without the battery running out too soon.
Well, Charge and Go. Okay. So the Charge and Go TAX, but it would be not the motion. No, okay.
Not the motion. So they'll have the AX.
Keep saying BTE rechargeable, but it's the RIC rechargeable.
It's the RIC one.
I have fit many of those products, and from a battery life standpoint, most of my patients were getting around 30 hours on a single charge, and even if they were doing streaming for, probably like 6, 7, 8 hours a day, they were getting more than enough battery life from their devices.
They will give you the most from a receiver and canal rechargeable hearing aid, streaming or not streaming. You're going to get the most out of them.
And actually, they make a really good distinction there. The Charge and Go TAX has a much longer battery life than the standard Charge and Go AX. Patients that I fit with two similar lines, just one had the T and one did not. The battery lives were very, very different there. So if you are looking from a streaming perspective, make sure you go the T route.
And you get a telecoil
And
to
you get
boot.
a telecoil thrown in.
For free.
Yeah.
Maybe not free. I don't know.
Okay, this next question is from Sarah. Why weren't the Signia hearing aids in Dr. Cliff's best custom video? Man, they're really after you today.
Yeah, hey, you know what? I call it like I see it. If I think that there's a product that is worthy of being in the best product lineup, I will put it there. If I don't think that it's in the best lineup of the best, I'm talking the best devices, right? You can't have a good or above average device. Like, I want to see that you have a device that I could consider being the best for certain people. And until I see like what I elect to be a best device that I would have no qualms fitting people with, then I'll do it. But you know, when you start looking at connectivity stuff with certain devices, with certain other brands of phones and things like that, if you're behind the 8 ball on that, then you're not going to be involved in the best of videos.
Right. Plus, when we have patients in front of us in office, a lot of this stuff goes out the window because it really is just what is the best for this individual sitting in front of me right now. And that very well may be a Signia custom device.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Based on what they're looking for. So
Yeah, that's a really good distinction to make. And your hearing care provider will be, or should be, doing all of the work with you to make sure that you are actually getting the device that is right for you, not just the one that appeared in a best video somewhere.
Right.
So again, make sure that you are having that conversation with your provider. Okay. Sarah's got another question for us. Have you used the tread grip, not sure what the technical name is for this, on their custom pieces? I think they have an extra retention grip coating on the outside.
I
of their
have not.
customs.
I have not either.
Okay.
Can't comment
Well, then
on
we
that.
cannot comment, but we will get you a better question or a better answer.
Yeah.
This next question comes from Haley. How long does it take for hearing aids to charge?
I would say it's probably the same around that general 3-hour
It
window
is,
there.
yeah. If you got 3 hours, usually you're going to be good. Most hearing aids can charge from completely dead to completely full in 3 hours. And most people are not running their hearing aids completely dead. So you're probably going to be sub 3.5 hours at the most.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, we've got two last questions. Is there a way to stream from a computer with Signia hearing aids? This comes from James. Sorry.
You would have to use the Streamline mic.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this does require the use of an intermediary device. So you would need to have the Streamline mic paired up to your hearing aids, and then the Streamline mic also paired up to your computer, and that would connect the two.
You know, we're just waiting for the day that we have Auracast and everything connects with everything. Universal
gosh.
connectivity, lower battery drain, right? Like it just answers so many questions and concerns that people have about modern day hearing aid technology. I have a feeling that, in 50 years from now, they're going to look back on these videos that we're showing all these sleek hearing aids and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, what the heck were they doing?
Right.
Right. And they didn't have Auracast back then. Like, how does one live
I know.
with hearing aids without Auracast? But they're working on it. They're going to get to the point where it's better. Newer generations are going to come out with newer versions of Bluetooth that you can have direct connectivity. To be honest with you, there's not a ton of hearing aids out there that can connect to any type of device that you want to, because they all use a lot of MFI and ASHA Bluetooth protocol. They're not using Bluetooth Classic. So that is one of the things that you're going to have to weigh what's most important to you. If connecting to your device without an intermediary unit hanging around your neck is what's most important to you, you're going to have to steer your decision-making process towards a different brand that can do that.
Yep. And again, really, really just important to bring all of these considerations up to your provider when you're consulting with them, because these are the things that have to be taken into account in order to make the best recommendation for you.
That's right.
All right, we've got one last question. It's an easy one. Your mom wants to know where you got your lederhosen from.
Lederhosen, that was Amazon.
Excellent.
That was definitely Amazon, and same thing with the Stein. Now, I returned the Lederhosen, but I kept the Stein because the Stein was awesome.
You returned
This,
it.
Returned the leader.
I returned the Lederhosen. I mean, it was a costume. It's like a holiday costume. It wasn't like legit Lederhosen that you're like wearing when I go to Oktoberfest in Germany. Now, I do have some German in me, so I can wear that stuff and still have it be appropriate. But yeah, that was probably my one of my favorite thumbnails. Honestly, my other favorite thumbnail, since we're on the topic, Mother, is the one where I was talking about the history of hearing aids and where I showed some of the hearing aids that we had in the episode here today. And I dressed up, I think, like George Washington, and I used an ear horn because that was like the first hearing aid ever,
Good
was
one.
just putting like a big ear horn out
one.
there. But yeah, go check that one out while you're at it.
I personally like the Paradise thumbnail where you're in the Hawaiian
Ooh,
shirt.
that was good.
And the sunglasses. I think you're drinking out of a pineapple or something.
I am,
Yeah,
and I
that's
had a
great
white
one.
nose because I was protecting
Oh,
it with the
yeah,
zinc
yeah.
oxide or
your
whatever
zinc, yep.
that is. Yeah, so that was good stuff. Well, hey guys, we appreciate you hanging out and giving us all those great questions on our episode today. You guys already know, hopefully, that you can find us every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Arizona time on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and WTSM TV. And as always, we'll see you next week.